It's not what you see, it's what you don't see. It's not who you know, it's who you really are.
A huge carved stone was unearthed in the Maya lands of Mexico in 1790. It was covered with glyphs, a writing of the ancient Mayans. They called it the Aztec Sunstone or Calendar Stone. These Mayan cultures knew about 2012 by reading the stars and listening to the voice of the earth. So stop, look, and listen.
You're aware of soft movement. You're aware of being seen, of being watched. Interested, curious. They see you and wonder if you'll notice them. Stay still, stay soft, and feel the energy of the life force around you, but also link into yourself. Link into your inner light and breathe the air and let the sunlight shine on you. Let it fill you and hold your heart safely. Be at one with all things. And then from the shadows and from the trees and from the earth and from the flowers, little balls of light shimmer and dance. Moving around you, they touch you, and you can feel that energy and that magic. Just allow them to know of you, and they welcome you to their place of magic.
So I set off for places unknown, a new life perhaps. An earthling, female, independent, and curious. I was drawn like a magnet to the crop circles of England, and that's where my perception of life really changed. I discovered a new paradigm existing right here, right now, and it was right in front of me all the time. It's right in front of you, too. Multi-dimensional reality. Not someday down the road or somewhere over there, but right here, right now, we have contact. Is anybody listening? For a month, this is my home, out in the middle of nowhere. No internet, no nothing. Lots of crop circles, druid groves, fairy forests, but in this middle of nowhere, which they call the end of the earth, Wiltshire, England, are beautiful sacred sites everywhere you look. Sacred people, sacred wisdom, wisdom of the ancestors. This is why I come. On this journey, I asked world travelers and renowned lecturers for their predictions, probabilities, and prophecies for 2012. I bring you the inspiring ones, knowing that our thoughts create our reality. We offer you the information. Your perception is up to you.
That script is still being written, you know, and we have an opportunity to contribute to that script. And I absolutely and fundamentally believe that, you know, every thought, every action is going to play some part in actually creating the reality beyond December 21st, 2012.
We should start with this huge stone that was uncovered by archaeologists many years ago in the jungles where the Mayans lived. And on this huge stone was all these glyphs that they didn't understand. There was a writing throughout this huge stone, about 9 feet in length, all around it. They didn't understand it, but what they did was very wise, is they took a charcoal carbon copy of it so that they would have the imprints to look at and figure out. Something extraordinary was taking place among them because they were living in relationship to astrological things that were taking place, and yet they didn't have the convenience of our modern telescopes or our modern astronomical understanding from our point of view, but they had an understanding of the astronomy or the stars that far exceeded that, because they were able to predict events that would occur in their lives, and also the events that would occur in the lives of those in the future. Because the calendar goes all the way back to 16.25 billion years ago, which you would say, what was a primitive people doing, involved with, and what was taking place 16.25 billion years ago. But since then, since they have traced the things that the calendar has predicted would occur, they have realized from that time all the way to this present time that this calendar is absolutely correct in what is prophesying for us in the present time and in the times to come. We're all part of an agenda that the cosmos has for bringing about what appears to be now spiritual humanity or spiritual consciousness.
I think we need to just ask ourselves, how can I mature as a human being and become responsible? Yes, it's like turning the TV off when you go to bed. Yes, it's like saving water. All these little things, yes, they do help and they do all make a difference. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't think they do. But if you add all those ones up to 10 million, then, you know, it's a significant difference on the planets. But on top of that, maybe there is cause now with the impending date to think about what part we can individually play and how we can contribute to doing something about what may potentially happen. I don't think it'd be wise just to sit back on our laurels and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it anyway. Let's rock and roll. Let's party until 2012. If nothing happens, we'll go back to work. The ostrich head in the sand scenario is not going to work.
There's so much speculation about 2012 that we have to always remember that we are creating it as we go. That nothing is fixed, nothing is time, and that all of the speculation we have, not only of our generation but of many others, has decided that there's this date. The calendar, the Mayan calendar, has fixed this date, and as we approach this date, it's fascinating that so many people are awakening to that moment, what it's going to signify for us. But we do always remember that we create reality in every moment, and so how we perceive what's going to happen is how it's going to happen. Let's not speculate and put so much into the date that we forget that we are the date. It is the moment. We're living it now. We are in such acceleration now. Look at us. Where are we? Here we are in a crop circle in Wiltshire. 2 people are here, 3 people. Yet so many thousands of people are projecting into what awaits us, and yet here we are. It's here. It's contact. It's our return to our multi-dimensional galactic knowledge. It's a returning to the Galactic Federation, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. It is becoming no longer orphans of the greater universe. And it is probably the most powerful moment of the entire human race throughout the millennium.
I've looked at this as an overview. I don't have a particular axe to grind on it. I've looked at the prophecies, ancient and modern, the contemporary visions people have had through all the states of consciousness, like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, sacred plant experiences, future progression into the future hypnotically, deep trance meditation, and even lucid dreaming. All these states of consciousness, people have come back talking about 2012 specifically.
It's not what you see, it's what you don't see. It's not who you know, it's who you really are.
There is so much more to reality than what most of us are aware of. For instance, as a psychotherapist since 1976, I have helped people to go back in hypnotic regressions to what we would consider the most amazing experiences with beings from elsewhere. Some have had maybe 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 regressions, so it totals more than 1,800 regressions of people to experiences, real life encounters that they have had with extraterrestrial beings. Because of the details that come through the regressions, moment by moment by moment, and because of the fact that the person reliving an earlier experience through the hypnotic regression process, we feel that we know, that we are convinced that these happenings, these episodes, are true, are real. I like to ask someone after I have done the regression, was that your imagination? Was that a story that came up? And they say, no, it was absolutely real. It really happened.
Psychics will talk about the veils between the spaces of life and death, the other side if you like. Physicists may talk about the veils between dimensions. Astrophysicists talk about our galaxy moving into a more dense energy realm in the Milky Way. Some of the finer points, which may have come way, way, way before in our species evolution, simple things like we all experience déjà vu. What if that is just the very, 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 very fine edges of these two dimensions, which, if they operate in a different time-space continuum, then a déjà vu could very well be one of your past or previous experiences where you go to a certain place, and because there's a mapping of these dimensions over each other, that space might give you a feeling, which at a very subtle mental or emotional level, you'll feel a response. The bets are on, the game's speeding up, we're reaching a climax in the game, and the wonderful thing about now is that we're becoming consciously evolved enough that we can take part in the outcome. So time to wake up, get a bit more responsible with what we're going to do with our lives.
I do believe we've had contact throughout many periods in the human development. From our inception, which is what we talk about over and over again when we talk about the experiments that were done, genetic experiments on our planet. So here we are now, about to recover and remember our starseed heritage. And I think this is definitely tied in with what's happening in 2012. And I really do believe that we're about to have global contact. Now let's think about this. We agree that we are in a state of utter, let's take it between chaos and confusion on this planet. People are scared, people are worried, people are more than ever before getting into a feeling of panic. And I ask, what is it going to take for 6,700,000,000 people to get a breakthrough in their consciousness, to break through from this oppressive state that we're in? And what other thing, whatever the one event would be more powerful than if we were to have global contact? Not just the crop circles here for the few and the determined like us, not just the lucky ones who see craft, but the entire planet becoming aware, having contact. What would happen The first thing that will happen when there's global contact, and it's not of the Independence Day variety, is that everything will shut down. Wall Street, the media, everything shuts down, and there's a moment of reckoning. And when that reckoning comes, and we are looking up, and without question recognizing that we're no longer alone or orphans, what happens to the vibration of each to the other on this planet, which we will admit could be improved upon? Won't we experience the most amazing sense of fraternity as we look to the stars and say, oh, here we are, we're not alone? Are they coming to save us? No, it's our karma, we have to fix it. But the recognition, the knowing that we are not alone is the huge shift in human consciousness. And I do believe that 2012 is the moment when we have these breakthroughs. Is it precise December 21st, 2012? Is the universe going to split apart? I don't think so. I think we are in the 2012 shift, and we take ourselves out of the number and we experience the fact that we're here. It's now. We're moving into it. We're swimming into it. We're living it from now until past that time, until we're past time. And remember that the calendar is about time, and it runs out on December 21st, 2012, according to the Mayans. And weren't they just saying that's when you shift out of time?
And we're standing here on the Ridgeway, and it seems very appropriate that this year there's been quite a number of crop circles along the Ridgeway, which is the oldest road in Europe. This was the ceremonial route that people come from both, well, from the south, the west and the east. They come to this one point down here, the sanctuary, for ceremonial reason. I hear lots of people coming out with a lot of theories about Illuminati and the Masonic orders and a lot of stuff like that. And a lot of people say, oh, they've got all these special secrets and they know all these things. And sure enough, yes, they've got some secrets. But I know that they haven't got all the secrets, because if they did know all the secrets, they wouldn't be watching what we were doing. And everything would be over for us all if they had all the secrets. My theory is that everybody's got a little bit of secret. And when we learn to work together, and we learn to come together as a race of people and to stop fighting amongst ourselves, then we'll find the secrets back. And that's when we'll find out how to work this land and live on this land properly. And there's no doubt that at the moment we rape the land. You've only got to look at this crop of barley here, which looks very nice. But I know that it's covered with pesticides and sprays. They spray it one thing, and then they spray it for something. They spray it to make it grow, and then they spray it to clean it, and they spray it to get rid of the weeds, and now they even spray it to make it go ripe. And then the minute it's down, within a few days they're on the land with the machines ripping the land apart. Mother Nature never gets a chance to breathe. And we're working her too hard, and she was going to let us down if we're not careful.
As to the question of what awaits us, the secret government, and all of the games that were big games that are being played, here's the question. Are you going to buy into it? Are you going to let yourself be dragged into this fear? The fear of martial law. Projecting into the future, we forget, we're distracted from the reality that we are already in it. Name a place on the planet where there is no war. We tend to be safe because it's just over there. There are people dying and suffering over there, but as long as it doesn't touch us, it's somehow out of touch. We're not in it. But look at the planet. There's war everywhere on this planet, and yet look at this day. Look at this place, this sun, the beauty of this planet. And the question of martial law, which keeps coming up. Yeah. Is there going to be martial law in the States? Isn't it already? You have given up all of your freedoms. You have no right to writ of habeas corpus. You can barely travel anymore. You have the right for your house to be impounded. You can be declared sick and be put into a camp without anyone being able to come and rescue you. Your bank account can be closed. This What are we worried about? We're in martial law, and it's everywhere. The States, Europe, it's a global plan. So meanwhile, look at this day. Look at the wonder. And ask yourself what you're going to do with these days. So much searching now for the quick fix, immediate mastership of all things spiritual. And much talk about, with the planet spinning as it is and moving into the photon belt, no need for the preparation. We're getting it. And I would like to say that the preparation is probably more beautiful than the getting it. The journey, the arrival, what's more beautiful, the anticipation, the walking up or the sitting in, the approaching a sacred site or the being in the center of it? And back to the question of 2012. Is it the what's going to happen when we're in it that matters, or the magnificence of spinning into such an incredible time, a time of shifting out of time? If only we can remember who we really are and what we're really doing here, the fear will go.
Now what we see with 2012 is a realization on a very deep level that it brings about an opportunity for very, very significant change. What we know is that the Mayan long count calendar, it's a calendar that extends through 5,125 years, and the current cycle of this calendar comes to an end at exactly 11:11 in the morning, GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, on the 21st of December 2012. And you know, it could well be that it's just like the 31st of December in a normal year. We go from 31st of December, we have big celebrations, we welcome in the new year, we look forward to new challenges, new opportunities, and life goes on. And it may well be that the 21st of December 2012 is a little different from that. But I don't think so. I think that there is something much more significant occurring here, not just because it's the end of a Mayan calendar long count, it's also the end of a 25,920 year precessionary cycle. And we're already starting to see some very, very significant changes occur. You know, I would think the primary event that kicked off this current period was, without shadow of doubt, 9/11. And I think that more and more people are beginning to become aware that the full truth of what occurred on 9/11 has yet to be told. There are some very, very significant aspects about 9/11 which should cause any serious thinker to reflect upon the physical events versus the official account. 4 planes apparently disintegrated, leaving almost zero in terms of wreckage. And of course, also for the first time in history, fire caused by allegedly the plane crashes led to 2 steel-structured buildings collapsing. Not just collapsing, but collapsing, one in some 45 minutes after the impact, the other one just over an hour after the impact. But the way in which they collapsed into their own footprint, and they turned to dust. Those buildings disintegrated. There is no explanation for these physical events. And of course, World Trade Center 7 collapsed at 5:20 in the afternoon, and that was an event that the 9/11 Commission didn't even touch upon. So what's happening is, in this period, this first decade of the 21st century, is the media manipulation has upped a gear. And what we see with things like the crash in the housing market, which started in the US and is now percolating through the rest of the world, you know, we're seeing the credit crunch, we're seeing the dollar basically going into the toilet, we're seeing oil prices you know, reach outrageous levels. All of this is being deliberately manipulated to effectively keep people in fear. So, you know, we have this manipulation that occurred with the oil crisis in 1973. Kissinger decided to up the game. He created a food crisis which led to the family farmer in the US effectively being wiped out. Today, the agribusiness, effectively runs 85% of all farming in the US. So today, here we are in mid-2008. We have a manipulated oil crisis, and we also have a manipulated food crisis. The agenda with this food crisis is to introduce genetically modified foods. You know, it's follow the money. The interconnectivity of these things is there. You do have to look for it, but it's actually there in plain sight. And these guys work on the basis that the vast majority of people don't have the time, even if they have the interest, to actually research this material. But you know what is happening is the children, the young people, they're not eating healthy diet. They're eating junk food that is devoid of nutrition, it's devoid of minerals, it's devoid of the basic vitamins. So I mean, they're effectively eating cardboard. The great tragedy is that you know, farmers will not even feed their animals the food that is being served up in the supermarkets, you know, as processed, packaged foods. You know, because guess what? It makes their animals sick. You know, and it's a farmer's livestock. So, you know, this stuff that, you know, we won't feed to the animals, we're quite happy to put on the shelves of supermarkets, which is then sold in the shop. You know, we have an opportunity here to resist the attack by those who want to keep humanity in perpetual slavery. That slavery is today financial slavery. You know, when we think of slavery, you know, perhaps we think of, you know, what occurred in the southern states, or you know, perhaps what occurred in Roman times. But it's not that kind of slavery. It's slavery where people have no freedom. It's slavery where people wake up and the only thing that they are able to do is basically take breakfast, then go out, work 8, 10, 15 hours a day, simply just to provide sufficient income to provide the basic needs for their family, i.e. food and shelter. Now with 2012 on the horizon, there is a growing community of people that are becoming increasingly aware of a change in their own and the wider consciousness. And these people are coming together. You know, these people are finding each other. So they are becoming communities. You know, we are tapping in, if you like, to a wider collective consciousness. There are a group of people who want to do everything they possibly can to stop that evolutionary process. These are the people who believe that they are the rightful rulers of a global fiefdom. And they believe that this has been their fiefdom for, you know, at least 5,500 years, and they don't want to have any challenges to that rule. But something is giving, something that they are losing control of. And how it's going to play out is anybody's guess. There's no question. The current version of the One World Government, i.e. effectively US-controlled United Nations, is not a sustainable model. Few people would argue that ultimately, with the right intention, with the right motivation, bringing different cultures and communities together to tap in to each individual's and each community's expertise and skills is the way forward. That small group of people who currently believe that they are the rightful rulers of a global fiefdom, in my opinion, know that they are coming to the end of that period and they're running scared. The future is absolutely in our hands.
We went from families, we went to tribes, and then we came to national consciousness, which became very strong. You know, my nation, right or wrong, my country, right or wrong. And so we came into a national consciousness which was determined by law. And as we all know, if you look into law attempting to legislate the activities of people, it falls short because it can be so convoluted that people don't understand it, and yet we're governed by it. And so the Mayan calendar says this period would come about, And we're now in the middle of this period, and we're looking at the end of it. You see, the end of this period will happen as the final, this next stage, which is called the galactic stage. This galactic stage will be a stage of ethics, so that power, which became distorted and misused, will ultimately be diminished and broken apart by the coming of ethics, or the ethical consciousness that will be manifest simply by virtue of the power of the universe to determine this next stage for humanity. Some point to great earth changes, earthquakes, things like that. Some point to huge and terrible economic changes that are going to affect the human race. But they all agree on one thing, that we will come out of it on the other side, changed again, transformed again, to live in a completely new paradigm. What could be more ethical when we think about it than people becoming absolutely intuitive or telepathic? You know, if we become intuitive and telepathic, it puts an end pretty much to lying. I mean, you can't manipulate people with words and do things that they're not going to be aware of if we're all telepathic or very extremely intuitive. So that's where this ethical thing is really going to be seated. As we become more intuitive, we will by nature have to become more ethical. And as we become more ethical, we will begin to restore harmony to our relationships and peace to our lands and our nations. And it's only reasonable that we'll be a lot happier when we're doing that.
Since it really began back in 1792 when the New York Stock Exchange was established, there's always been what we call strong hands and weak hands. The strong hands are people with lots of money. The weak hands are generally the guy on the street, the person trying to invest and make some money. And typically the way that these cycles work is you have strong hands running the price of buying stocks basically at wholesale, running the prices up, and then selling to the man on the street retail. When they withdraw their support and you start to see negative news come out, then people generally get a little bit nervous and they start to sell. When they see markets go down, they want to sell even more. And it offers this group of people the opportunity to purchase the stocks back again at wholesale, and the cycle tends to repeat itself. Now, a year later, we see a completely different vocabulary being used, and I find this very, very interesting. Now we see banners across the bottom of the CNBC with words like crisis and emergency and is your money safe, and so sell-off and deflation and disaster. And so the very same network that 1 year earlier was kind of having a party is now, I think, sending out a vocabulary of fear. And I get people calling me all the time saying, do you think we should sell everything? Let's just sell out. And I find it interesting because here we are now down 50%, and the vocabulary is getting people to panic and to sell what they have. And it really creates an unbelievable buying opportunity for those in a position with lots of money, again, to pick up great companies at wholesale and start running them up again. And then they'll only get people interested after they've risen quite a bit, and then you'll start seeing positive news and people will start piling back in, and that cycle repeats itself. So I just find that the vocabulary being used is interesting, and you really don't have to go very far. You didn't see this before, but you know, even in our periodicals, you know, markets fall as fears of slump span the world. So this means no, you know, that kind of tells you no place to hide. We're spanning the world. Currencies in turmoil. So here we are using words like turmoil all of a sudden. Now we're pointing out that the Dow is hitting its 5-year low. So we're telling people about that. And then we're showing traders in dismay. So, you know, isn't that interesting? Dow drops, and we're using vocabulary like plummet. Before it used to drop, now it's plummeting. And we've got guys that are trading looking panic-stricken with their head in their hands. And this vocabulary, in my opinion, just gets people so afraid because the man on the street or the person on the street really isn't in a position. They're not necessarily students of the game. They have their own lives to live, and so they have to depend on this kind of information. And you see them all running for the exits at the same time, and it kind of feeds on itself. So I kind of look at this as in a little different way. I've had people tell me I need to get my money out of the United States. So, you know, my first comment was, well, where are you going to go? I mean, you know, where is there a place to go at this stage? And so I kind of look at this in a way that, that says, wow, maybe there's an opportunity here to kind of work from the mental plane instead of the emotional plane, because we're human beings, and there are people that know how to manipulate humans on an emotional level because we have such a large emotional component. Very few humans think first. And you know, all the teachers that came to teach us, Jesus and Buddha and the saints, have all said, right thought begets right feeling, begets right action. But if you let feeling dictate thought, it's kind of like the tail wagging the dog. And since emotions are really a human trait, and I think manipulators understand that, they can manipulate us on our emotions and then cause us to do things without thinking. And I think a lot of this rampant selling is a result of that.
Today, when everybody is worried about money because we put such stock in the idea that money is going to bring us freedom and peace and security, and now we're discovering that may not be true at all. And so there's going to be a new, a new formula for existing. And it's not going to revolve around how much money we have. It may actually revolve around how much integrity we have. It may involve around how considerate we are, or how compassionate we are. What if we suddenly discovered that the people that are becoming most compassionate and most considerate are actually reaping the benefits of nature, that things are happening for them that are giving them a great bounty on a material level. And we will decide, wow, we've been missing this all along. The universe really does bless us when we're willing to bless all those creatures and things around us. Now, the Mayans were far beyond that in their understanding. Even though they were a seemingly primitive culture, they understood a relationship that went beyond this single idea of our Gregorian calendar. They understood that the stars themselves, the galaxies in which we exist, have an influence on everything that's happening in our lives every single day. Here's what the Mayan calendar seems to indicate will happen to us, since it appears to us that time is speeding up. You know, we talk about multitasking now because we have so many events taking place and we're trying to keep up with our lives. The mind can only deal with 24 frames per second. It can only deal with 24 images, 24 thoughts per second. And that's it. When we go beyond that 24 thoughts per second, we're in a state of stress, and there's no way to avoid it. As soon as too much stuff is happening around us that we have to deal with, we start to move toward a state of anxiety and stress. Well, now, if all the events that the calendar is predicting are happening quicker and quicker in cycles that are quicker and quicker, to the point where they say in this particular cycle that we're in now, everything changes every 19 years. Everything changes totally, completely. There's a generation gap every 19 years. But they are talking about when everything, knowledge will increase and double every 18 minutes. Now imagine, we used to talk about a generation gap back in maybe in the 1950s. You talk about a generation gap that took place every 30 or 40 years. There was a generation gap. Now we're talking about every 20 years. They're talking about, before we get to 2012, it may be every 18 minutes. What's going to happen to the mind that can only process 24 thoughts per second? What's going to happen to the mind that can only process that amount of information when all the information that's coming in is doubling, quadrupling, and moving in such a direction that we're not going to be able to reason with it? We're not going to be able to sit down and figure out what we're going to do with these conditions that are taking place. Well, we're going to get to a place where the mind is not capable of figuring it out because what's happening is happening too fast. Too many events, too many things, too many occurrences are occurring right on top of each other to such a degree that stress will reach a certain place that we will, and I know this sounds rather strange, but we will go out of our minds. We will simply go out of our minds. We will be in that state of consciousness where intuition will determine our actions. Our intuition, and so because there's no time to figure things out, we will simply be in the flow of creation. And I will be moving with conditions, circumstances, and events in relationship to that cosmology, or that cosmic movement, knowing exactly what to do, what's appropriate to do, what will bring harmony, what my place in the doing of it is. I'll simply know that because I will be totally one with this universal consciousness we refer to as the divine, or God, or the will of God.
The information that I've looked at, it sort of indicates that the whole solar system is going into a new area of plasma. That is going to saturate the Earth's atmosphere, causing an increase in the atmospheres and magnetic fields of all the planets in the solar system, and ramping up the solar magnetic activity. Those changes will impact on human consciousness, and the movement of the Earth's magnetic field, there's evidence to show that it will affect consciousness via the magnetite that's in our pineal gland and the sinus bones, and that will precipitate a secretion of an internal hallucinogen. In other words, people will start seeing visions on a mass. This is what I interpret the information to mean. Those visions, if you haven't sorted out your inner stuff in your unresolved conflicts, your shadow material, that will come out in a visible form. And it seems like one of the things that is going to increase is telepathy. So if you imagine that all your thoughts are being broadcast, then it soon becomes apparent which kind of thinking needs to be altered in order to come into line with a situation where you are broadcasting your thoughts.
I'm the keeper of the stones here at Avebury, the Temple of the Ancient Britons in Wiltshire. Ancient man built these sites as permanent markers to remind, so that they would survive even when huge numbers of the population have been wiped out. In the future, other humans will come here and look and try and figure out what ancient man was trying to tell us. Man will survive, man will carry on. Man survived the last cataclysmic event, which we believe was 78,000 years ago, potentially, and around between 100 and 200 humans survived it. And we're all descended from them, all of us. No exceptions, no aliens. Just what?
We, Homo sapiens, were we the design of a genetic experiment of stellar beings? I believe we were. This idea might have been off the charts 20 years ago, but as scientists have now broken the DNA code, and as we implement and utilize this information to do all kinds of aberrant exercises and experiments on animals, why would it be so far out to imagine that we too could be an experiment of beings hopefully more advanced than us that decided to seed a new species on this golden planet? A process, an intervention, caused some of our DNA to be scrambled. And science backs this up. Scientists tell us we have 95% junk DNA. We're operating on 5%. There's something wrong with this picture. All we have to do is connect the dots here. All we have to do is remember what that DNA is there for. And I really believe this is the time we're doing that. Well, incredible work is being done now in the discovery of the consciousness of water, the consciousness of all living beings, as we reconnect with the essence of this planet, Gaia, a living deity. As we remember, like the indigenous ones, that this planet is a conscious living being. She knows what she's doing. She knows. This planet is 80% water. We've done a really good job on polluting these waters, altering, lowering the frequency of the perfect nature. The reason we exist, when you consciously communicate with the water that you drink and the water that you utilize for everything, when you ask that water to be in its highest intention and to reflect back to you the most perfect geometry, the symbolism, the frequencies of the universe, it will. Let us be guardians of the vibrations of this earth and the waters.
I work for Seaface, which is the Center for Environmental, Fisheries and Agriculture Sciences. And I work as a discard monitoring type person, which means I go out to sea on the fishing boats with the fishermen, and I monitor what's thrown away by sex, weight, species, and length. The main problem that I can see is the amount of plastic that's in the sea. You're getting plastic bags, beer can ties, sanitary towel liners that aren't biodegradable, Q-tip, plastic inners, and pretty soon if you want to eat something from the sea, you're going to have to learn to digest plastic.
Till 2006, the archaeologists were saying there's no proof that the Maya were actually interested in 2012 because there's nothing in the inscriptions. Well, in 2006 it came out that there is an inscription at a place called Tortuguero called Monument 6, and on that inscription it specifically mentions three cross-referencing calendars that refer to 21st December 2012 in our calendar, which is the winter solstice and the end of the 13 Bacchus cycle, and the prophecy that goes with it is there will be a return of the 9 gods. Now that agrees with some things I'd already found in the Mayan Prophecies, which are post-conquest documents where it was written down after the Spanish had made bonfires of all the codices, the bark books of the Maya. They then had to encourage, because the King of Spain wanted to know what was written on them, so De Landa, who'd made the bonfires, was told to encourage the locals to write this stuff down again. And as a result, the Mayan Prophecies turned up, although they are a bit infected with Spanish and Christian thinking. There are prophecies in there which the archaeologists thought were all done and past, and to do with a calendar called the short count, which is what they were using when the Spanish arrived. But the linguist who translated that realised that there's clues in there that those prophecies originally referred to the long count, which was lost around 900 AD at the end of the Classic era. And actually those prophecies refer to the long count, not the short count. So in other words, they're about 2012. And I'd already been looking at those and have found several things that seem to support this, this discovery. Well, I mean, the archaeologists already knew about it, but coming into the public domain in 2006, that the 9 gods were due to return in 2012. All this is in the Mayan Prophecies about the return of Kukulkan in the 20-year period we're now in, which is called Katun Forahau, and the return of 9 gods, and that it says that these 9 gods, which are also one god, that after death will be the subject of their discourse. And I think that means that there'll be a similar sort of mass near-death experience for humanity, where we get to see beyond a normal perceptual boundary into the death state, and that sort of confers with exactly what's said in the Maori prophecy, that was originally thought to mean the world would end because it says in 2012 Kahinga Tiarai, which means the curtain will fall, but in fact it was found that that was originally should have been translated as the veil will dissolve, and that veil is the same veil between life and death. So a lot of these things, although they seem to point to a world end situation at first, when you look into them, they actually point to a transformational experience for humanity where our perceptual boundaries are crossed and we can look beyond into another realm.
This farm has been in the family now since about 1923. My maternal grandfather farmed here, and I came up here in the early 1950s, in fact 1951, and started farming it in 1952, which I did for about 40 years. The number of crop circles we've actually had on the farm, I think I could say probably 4. It is the first time we've had a corn circle for a number of years. We've had them before adjacent to the Wansteig, where they have been very visible from the road. This one is not visible from the road, and therefore it does beg the question as to why anyone, if it is man-made, why anyone would come up and do it, unless they're being extremely well paid. If they are, I would like to emphasize that money does not go to the landowner or the farmer. The early ones we had were nearly all just circles, quite large circles, but circles, and then that evolved into another one that had 3 circles, where the corn went, or the wheat went clockwise in certain circles and anti-clockwise in the other. I'm a skeptic. I believe some of these are undoubtedly man-made, but there are others which do slightly defy logic, and therefore I'm interested in what is causing these. I think that by and large the farmers, local farmers, are fed up to the back teeth with crop circles, because when it's all said and done, particularly in a wet year, it is damage to their crop. And farming margins have been very slim for a number of years, though they look slightly better this year. And therefore they are slightly hostile to people who come and look at them. Occasionally they put out boxes and hope people will drop a little bit of money in when they come in and look. Somebody did that in one of mine, but I didn't do it, and nor did the tenant. And when I discovered the box, it was empty. So it does slightly discourage one from trying to make money out of these, this phenomena. Obviously, they are best observed from the air, and from standing in it, you don't really see exactly what you've got here. Now, these circles nearly always appear overnight. No one, as far as I know, has ever been caught in daylight making a crop circle, and very few people have been caught at night making them. Which does, again, lead to this cryptic question: why, how, who, and what? I've sent a certain amount of information from universities in the States about the weight of the corn inside and outside, and the different properties that it had. Some people have told me that it's radioactive inside the circles. Some people said that the circles that their cameras have failed to work. Other people have said they've had no problems at all. We are very much in the headquarters of the military around here. And it occurred to me early on that there might be, that the official line was to ignore them because they had certain military significance. In other words, they were testing something from outer space or whatever, in view of the fact there are so many camps and things, and that they very cleverly linked this to the fact that this is the centre of such an ancient civilization and the Stone Age and all the rest of it. So that was a way they could divert attention to what they were doing, which after all, as I said earlier, is criminal damage.
Okay. Behave. I find that he acts different in here to what he does normally. I struggle stopping him, and he throws his head about and just mucks about to what he does normally. And he just gets really agitated in here. He knows what it's all about, and I think he just feels the energy. It's really hard to explain.
So the crop formations that seem to be on the increase, but the most recent studies by BLT, Burke, Levengood and Talbot, show that it is likely that there is a plasma involved in this, but a new kind of plasma vortex which comes down from the ionosphere. They found melted meteoritic particles concentrated in the centre of formations, apart from the ones that were done by hoaxers. They found them all over the world. There is these meteoritic particles exist high up in the ionosphere, and they were looking for something that swirls and something that has a microwave side effect, because they found that the exploded nodes can be reproduced in industrial microwave ovens. What seemed to fit the bill was a kind of thing that exists above a thunderstorm called a sprite, which is a plasma tube that comes down from the ionosphere. Well, they're saying there must be something like this involved in crop circle formations, but that wouldn't explain the meaning that people get from these patterns. So I think there's evidence to show that there's consciousness involved in this, because people have filmed these plasma balls in association with crop formation. Plasma is the fourth state of matter beyond solids, liquids, gases. It's all the electrons stripped off a gas, and so it's a very nebulous kind of gas that's held in a magnetic cage, and it can go through solid objects. These balls of light can be shown on radar when they've actually disappeared. They're still on radar when they've disappeared from the visible spectrum, and then they can reappear again. So they're still there. They're things which go in and out beyond our normal visible boundaries and affect 3D reality in that way by this borderline state which belongs to two realms. So as we have a situation where there's massive increase of plasma in the atmosphere, that seems to tie in with this. Fairy faith and the UFOs and the crop circles and everything, they're all related to this consciousness from another realm, but that it's playing tricks on us, and it sort of seems to be there in order to help us raise our consciousness and develop our thinking beyond the mundane.
I've been living in this area since 1985 and working with local groups and psychics and mediums, and have really been given quite an overview of this phenomenon from the early days, let's call it. This is some time ago now, about 6,000–7,000 formations later. We sit here in 2008, and this great interdimensional prompt, in a sense, from higher beings who are assisting and helping humanity at this time, really probably the greatest phenomenon of our time on the planet. They're also inevitably within a world of duality, where light and dark, so-called, the opposite polarization, always needs to interact. And it's been interesting to talk to people when they come here of how upset they are that there are attacks and assaults on this phenomenon, that the military, the police, the farmers, that everybody seems to be against them, that even people who are for them seem to be so often egotistical in their research and unsharing and uncooperative. And I say to them, well, that is duality working out. One aspect must always counteract the other. So where a great light manifests, you will always find the exact reverse. So if you come over to this area, be prepared for World War III, as I always like to call it. Here in the beautiful fields of southwest England in Wessex, a great drama is being worked out. It's the most challenged and endangered in a sense of the phenomena on the planet, because everybody locally who is not in a sense aware is automatically against it. If people don't have a frame of reference, within which to place this, of course, they are in the box. They're not able to think or see outside the box. And that's fair enough. We have to leave the vast majority of people exactly where they are and not hassle them, not try to convert them, not bother them. This phenomenon is probably only intended for a very small minority of humanity to absorb. And that's perfectly all right, because it's only a critical mass of awakened humans that will in fact absorb the energies of this time and create the great differences that are now coming. You've got all kinds of mathematics, fractal geometry, you've got holograms, you've got really very extraordinary information being imparted. Vital information for the next stages as the planet goes through the dimensional shift around 2012. I feel it's the energy itself is put into very specific places. It's never randomly placed. It's always on energy lines near power centers. I feel it could very well be putting energy into acupressure points on the planetary body, so that it is in fact having an effect far wider than humanity. In other words, the message is not really, or the energy, just for us. There are many, many levels that are being worked. And they're also seen in other places. We have about 90% in this region of the southwest of England. They do come in other forms, in sand, in ice, in snow, in treetops. There have been all kinds of manifestations, but the vast majority are in this area of southwest England. The crop circle phenomenon, on top of our great sites like Avebury, Stonehenge, Glastonbury, which are now attracting people by the millions, as though the stones are magnetizing and calling them in. It's as though crop circles was the cherry on top of the cream, on top of the icing, on top of the cake, if you see what I mean. So it's like a great cosmic finger is pointing and looking at this area.
Are you wondering what crop circles and balls of light have to do with 2012? Or spaceships and alien beings? It's one big galactic story and we're all a part of it. Researchers believe that crop circles are the first physical manifestation of communications from other realms of existence that humans can physically see. The sacred symbols and binary codes of the crop circle formations offer very important information, and this has been documented by experts for years. A number of these messages refer specifically to 2012. Many believe that these advanced life forms are guiding us toward a new paradigm of higher consciousness and galactic unity, leaving messages in the crop circles for us to see. 2012, we're already in it.
It is important for those of us who have a more expanded consciousness to think of 2012 in a very positive way. A time when everything in the world and the world plane and the physical world and within humanity improves. This is a time, we are told, when accelerated energies, rapid, speeded up frequencies are coming to the earth and coming to us as people. Time is happening so rapidly, and I think that that is one of the indications that our frequencies, and therefore our consciousness, are being changed. Changed by whom? Changed by some kind of intelligence. It's difficult for us to prove what that intelligence is, but there's a whole universe out there of intelligences, some in body form, some in other dimensional form, non-physical form. As a psychotherapist and a regression therapist for many years, and having regressed 600 or more people to encounters with extraterrestrial beings, I know that there are other intelligent life forms in the universe. I know that many of those life forms come to Earth and they interact with people. I know that some of those life forms are more self-serving, and we tend to hear about that more in the public media. Also, there are life forms and intelligences that are very caring. They're very interested in the earth. caring about what's happening to the earth, very lovingly caring about humanity and all life forms on earth. Those beings come to people. They heal people. They inspire people. They channel through people. And these intelligences, probably millions and billions of them, are here to help the earth, to help humanity. Not to save us, not to rescue us, not to take us off in big UFO crafts and let the world go into destruction. No, I don't see it that way. I see that they are here to inspire us human beings, to get busy, to make the changes. They work with us to purify the waters, to help the earth, to help each other. So this is a way that we can look at 2012 approaching. This is the time when there can be tremendous improvement if we human beings do our part. One of the ways that we feel sure that other beings, other intelligence of kindly intent are coming to the earth is the laying down of beautiful crop circles. Crop circles all over the world, noticed and recorded particularly in Wiltshire County, England. The crop circles, many of us believe, are great messages of hope, messages of caring. They stimulate us. They tweak our curiosity about where do they come from, what or who or what kind of intelligence has made these crop circles, and how do they do it, and most of all, for what purpose. We know that something really miraculous and mysterious is happening in the crop circles in our fields. We know from scientific testing that there can be 17 different biophysical changes in the plants in genuine crop circles. We know that the plants are often bent over at ground level without being broken at all until people come and walk on them. We know that there is the increase in energy in the crop circles. This energy can be measured and indicated, validated by using a pendulum or a pair of dowsing rods or electrostatic voltmeters or other instrumentation, magnetometers for instance, that show that something remarkable has happened exactly in that area where the crop circle is, and not even a foot or two outside of the design of the crop circle. The fact that the patterns have such perfect geometries, perfect symmetry, beautiful design, and represent spiritual symbols in many cases, it shows that there is definitely intelligence, and I would say a very high-minded intelligence in the making of the crop circles. Some people claim that your DNA is changed as you look at a picture of a crop circle. Some believe that your consciousness is raised. Some feel that your physical being is enhanced, that somehow your frequencies are being raised, lightened, improved. Many people have experienced being physically healed of whatever their infirmity is in a crop circle. This too is a testament to the unusual, positive, benign energies that are in many of these crop circles. So crop circles are waking us up, pointing us to the possibility of other existences, other intelligences that actually come here to the earth and play upon this wonderful life-giving medium of the crops, the basis of our life, the basis of our food. What a perfect medium. Sometimes people have a sense that I'm not from here and this isn't my real family. I know that I belong out there, and they'll look up at the sky. And sometimes those people will ask, maybe for decades, please, whoever you are, whatever you are, please come and take me to where I belong. Take me home.
In my capacity as a psychic artist, whereby I draw and channel people's spirit guides, I'm commonly asked, what do I think is going to happen in 2012? My answer to that is, what would you like to happen in 2012? As more and more people awaken spiritually, that naturally raises the vibration of the individuals and of the planet. As more and more individuals raise their vibrations, we will start shifting in dimensions. We're all powerful creators. We create our own reality by what we choose to accept as our reality. This whole reality that we experience in the third dimension is very much as it is through the mass consensus, a collective choice, the mass individual's choice, and thus our reality mirrors those choices. So as more people wake up, more people align to their spiritual nature, when we get a specific percentage of the human population having raised their vibrations to a particular level, our reality will start to change and we will start perceiving and moving into a higher vibration, a higher frequency, a higher dimension.
Another wonderful thing about being in the fields is reconnecting with nature, which kind of we know, but we forget in our cement towers and busy lives. But it's so important now to feel the vibration of this planet, to sit in a field or on the grass, to hear the earth vibrating, to hear the heartbeat of Gaia. And as we birth this planet through its process, and that is the process of ascending out of this dimension, we want her to be healthy, vibrant, musical. We want the music of Gaia to sound a call through the universe. As we birth into a higher level of awareness, all of this is the music of our soul, the music of our planet. It's part of every cell of our being. And this music, we want to imprint forever, because we are children of this planet. And we carry that music into the higher dimensions, all of us. And when we get back to hearing the music, we remove ourselves more and more from the drone of busy lives, distracted lives. And this too is part of preparing for 2012.
And I think it's essential to point out, of course, that for all of us the link with nature is vital. It is the link to the divine. And when we lose, as physical beings on a physical planet Earth, our link to nature, to the mother, we lose that connection to the divine. And you only need to look at our urban, expanding societies and the chaos into which they're falling now to see that they have lost it. And what they've lost is the connection to nature. And all the friends that help us in nature, because really it is a partnership. The urban situation is dire. A huge city only has to lose its power for 2 or 3 days. The supermarkets are not filled, there's no water, there's no pumping, there's nothing. And it's pretty obvious what the results of that are going to be. I don't want to go into fear-mongering and peddling now, but you only have to have 2 brains to know that it's an unnatural environment and unsurvivable. So these times we may well talk about 2012 and the changes we're going into at many levels, but one of the most important levels always is to be anchored, grounded and connected with nature, and to work in partnership with the various realms that are there already, although unseen, are working, that have been ignored for so long. So the beautiful thing also now is that with new digital photography, we're beginning to see the other realms. We're beginning to see orbs, which are little balls of intelligence and consciousness. We see them over the crop circles. If you actually zone in on an orb on your digital camera and really expand it, you see the most incredible formations often within the orb. Some of them actually look like crop circles themselves. Other faces appear in them. So we're really beginning to see another level. And then, of course, we have the lovely pictures that I showed you of this angel, a most lovely picture with a fantastic dark purple aura outside a church in Sweden on Christmas Eve of 2007. A really incredible photograph that is actually still living. If a group of people stand around it and focus on it, that aura actually expands. So it's a living energy in the photograph. And then we have the very lovable little elf picture of a little tree being in Sri Lanka. It was given to me by a friend who was given it by somebody who'd taken that shot in one of the rainforests in Sri Lanka. This little being is rather like a naughty little boy with long pointed ears, as you see in the picture, and is not really much larger than the size of a leaf. And it was only in the random taking of a shot that this little being became evident and apparent. So what we're seeing is that with the dimensions kind of collapsing one into another, that our technology and our own abilities with our own sensing and third eye can at last begin to not only sense and feel but also see these other beautiful beings that are working, and they work in partnership with us. They have just the rights that humans have. We need to respect them, they respect us.
Let's look outside the box, knowing there's more. It was a cold and rainy morning in the crop circles. I couldn't resist. There was a fresh one and I wanted to see it new. I felt a presence, and sure enough, there was an elemental being in the crop circle. Confirmation. The very next day I drove into a little town and there was a statue of a king. It was the same image that I had seen in the mist. A few days later I saw him again, a pixie this time, demanding my attention. Confirmation once again. It's not what you see.
It's what you don't see.
It's not who you know.
It's who you really are.
It is said that, a large portion of humanity may very well not make this particular transition physically. It could be either a third or two-thirds that leave the physical. But whatever that is, what is important is to understand that without the connection to nature, the ability to feed ourselves, to understand the growing processes, the cycles of nature, and to honor the whole process, we are in dire difficulties. It's not as though someone's waving a wand on some other planet and transforming us here. We are interdimensional messengers.
So you could look upon it as it looks as if we are in the Tzolk'in calendar. The 260-day Maya calendar is about individuals, based on a individual human gestation. Well, the long count calendar is the same structure, 260 units, but it maps out the whole of human history from the beginning of history around 3114 BC. So it looks as if it's mapping out a sort of global version of a gestation, so that the Earth consciousness is being born. Well, in a birth process, as Terence McKenna said, if an alien was to come around the corner and see a human mother giving birth, he'd think she was in the throes of a terrible, painful death, metastasizing a huge tumour in all the blood and pain and everything, and that she was about to have a horrible death. But in fact, the reverse is the truth. And if we can see that same thing going on here on a global level, the Earth changes are a side effect of the main event, the birth of a new consciousness.
The gift to you today, which you can go out and do tomorrow, is to look on the web and look at any water for fuel sites, build yourself a kit for, let's say, 50 euros, and stick it in your car, and tomorrow you will be significantly contributing to the major crises that we have now, and that's going to put us in a better place. And if we can all do that, hey, what else is there? So there's no excuse for anybody now to be saying, what can I do? It doesn't make a difference. Sorry, you're just not paying attention. Wake up.
They've just invented a water car in Japan that was announced a few weeks ago that runs completely on water. It can even run on old cups of tea and seawater or whatever. Yeah. So now the technology is out there, and hopefully this will snowball now.
And the key to it all, in the end, is that we'll have accomplished is we'll have become absolutely considerate of everything that is and everything that lives. Total consideration for everything. And being able to appreciate and give thanks for that.
The script is still being written, and it's really important for each and every one of us to make a difference, to step up our game and be more compassionate with everything and everyone, to care about the planet, and to have less of a footprint that we leave behind. Every thought, word, and action creates the reality of our world. So watch your thoughts and ask yourself what you can do to make a difference, and then do it. Make a difference, because you matter. We all count. We're all in this together.
And so a new day dawns, and the sun rises, and the sun shimmers and sends its light, touching everything. And the world wakes, and you wake, into a fresh day, a new dawn, a new beginning, a time of hope.
Despite the illusion, we're going to get this. We're going to get it.
2012? We're already in it.
Be a seeker and searching in your infinite sea. Know you create your history. Step into the white light, melt back into love. Kiss goodbye the ego and the story. Let the light fulfill us, and let this love set us free. Walk a path of true forgiveness. Cross the bridge, you and me. Let the light fulfill us.
what you don't see. It's not who you know.